¿Estás pensando en tus vacaciones soñadas este verano temiendo el costo? Con iBora recibes reembolsos en todas tus compras. Así puedes tomar más tiempo creando recuerdos este verano y menos tiempo soñando hacerlos. Ahora mismo, iBora ofrece a nuestros oyentes $5 solo por probar iBora usando el código La Música cuando te registras. Simplemente ve a App Store o Google Play Store y descarga la aplicación gratuita de iBora para empezar a ganar reembolsos. Usa el código La Música. Eso es IBOTTA en Google Play o App Store y usa el código La Música.
Coming up on this episode of the Mario Rosenstock podcast.
Listen, Mario, if you had said to me that the two cinemas in Waterford and the one in Dungarvan were going to show The Hurler when I started making this, I would have went unbelievable. But to come out on, nationwide, in 4 different cinema chains, to spend 6 weeks in cinemas and to now be across the world on Amazon Prime, that's not even real. That's unbelievable.
Fucking unreal, boy.
Unreal, boy.
Well, he was on this podcast around this time last year, about 14 months ago actually, and in those 14 months, Tony Kelly's life has completely transformed, it's fair to say. Tony is an actor and comedian who came up with a comedy character many years ago called Gar Campion, a very talented but deeply flawed hurler. Tony started putting Gar in sketches on YouTube in 2011, and from there he fought tooth and nail to turn the hurler into something, a TV series, a feature film maybe. And a feature film is what he made. And against all odds, he made it all happen on his own, practically on his own, with the help of some very important people, of course, as we all need in our lives. But he was the man that drove it, a man with a dream who made it happen. And I was in it! Tony thought maybe, just maybe, he would get a short run in his local cinema in Waterford. But how wrong he was. The hurler has exploded onto the scene, and Tony is back on the podcast on this episode to tell me all about what has happened in this fantastic journey since he's made this movie, and where to next. But we also talk about his personal struggles, with a fascinating story that goes back years, about drink, drugs, and how that side of his life has been going for him since those very dark times he went through not so long ago. There's lots in this one, folks.
I was prescribed Xanax for my anxiety, but I was prescribed a Xanax when I was feeling anxious. I wasn't prescribed 25 Xanax on a Monday morning.
Sorry for laughing.
Do you know what I mean, though? I auditioned for Ted Lasso for Roy Kent, and it was my dream role in my dream production, and I took that so personally when I didn't get that part, and that's ridiculous. That's not the real world. The headline they led with in that Indo piece, I overdosed twice in 24 hours on prescription medication. That's the truth, but Jesus Christ, they didn't need to make it the headline. Like that's hard to put up on your Facebook and go like, oh, I did an interview with the Indo, and you're like, oh. I've been in stuff before, obviously I've done small parts, but buying a ticket to my own film, to actually see my face on the poster and the hurler written on the ticket that I came up with at a session in 2011, mental.
My full chat with Tony Kelly coming up in just a few minutes' time. But first, the success of The Hurler has propelled Tony into the big leagues now, and the Mario Rosenstock hotline has been hopping with well-wishers. Have a listen. Hi, you've reached the Mario Rosenstock podcast. Please leave a message.
This is Donald J. Trump. Great to hear Tony's on the podcast. He spent a lot of time in the Big Apple, my hometown, doing the comedy circuit, The Hurler. Great movie. Nobody knows more about hurling than me. Great game, great guy. Last time I was visiting Trump International in Doonbeg, I heard Tony was around and I learned how to play. A lot of people said I was a natural. One of the best players they'd ever seen. A lot of smart people said that. A lot of smart. Ger Loughnane, Shauno Gohalpine, Jimmy Barry Murphy. They said Trump was the greatest hurler they'd ever seen. Maybe when I'm back, Tony, we can puck around. Tony, it's Joe Biden. What I'm trying to say is, look, man, you done a great job. Congratulations. And I gotta go take a nap. How's it going? John Mullane here. I've 2 words for Tony Kelly. Unreal, boy. That's 3 words, okay. The hurler, some laugh. Tell Tony I'd love to share a bottle of Phoenix with him on the town some night down in the Downses. He probably doesn't go there anymore. I love me county, boy. No, Tony does as well. Hi, Tony, or Mario, actually. It's Brendan O'Connor here. Somebody told me that you had a great candidate on your podcast that had awful addiction problems. Could be a mental health special on my show. We haven't managed to secure our addiction problem guest slot on this weekend's show, which is pretty serious. Like, I can pretend to be interested in the whole bullshit cookery and pop psychology features thing we do, you know yourself. But when I get my teeth into a really serious mental health addiction meltdown story, I just love it. Can you pass on my number to Tony, please? I'm desperate. Thanks.
Well, Tony must be blushing after hearing all that. So let's not keep him waiting any longer. This last year has been a total game changer for Tony, and I wanted to hear all about it. So he took me back to the very start. Tony, this time last year around, you came in here and you told me that you had, well, I knew you had because I had taken a small part in it.
Yes.
Your film called The Hurler.
Yeah.
And it had a little premiere in Garter Lane down in Waterford.
That was the time, that was at the time I was in last time,
Yeah. And so you basically created this thing, The Hurler, which was a comic film. And what has happened since then in the year since? Tell me this story.
Yeah, so we were doing Garter Lane. That was, I think, April of last year when I was here with you and we were saying, would you, all that kind of stuff. And what we did was we had a cast and crew screening in Waterford. I wanted to get a vibe of how was it looking, how was it feeling, how was an audience reacting to it. It was still a little bit long. It was still running at about an hour 50, I think, at that stage. And for a comedy, I don't think that's, it's not Judd Apatow or anything like that. So from there, I honestly didn't know when I was in here what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I felt like a bit of a fraud in here the last time because I was going to have made this film, you're in it. But is anyone ever going to see it? Because it was an independent film. I made it off my own back and investment from people who believed in it. I didn't go to...
Well, we didn't think you were a fraud, but we were just completely admiring of the fact that you had stuck by your guns. You had written this script. That's the hardest part, really, doing a comic film and drafting all the drafts and the redrafts and going through the laboriousness of all that.
Yeah.
And then after that, you're sick of it, to be honest
Very.
with you. And then you're going to bring it to people and you're going to go, I love this. But actually, you're sick of it.
Yeah.
And then you're going to try and get people to back it. And you did. And you got local Waterford backers.
Yes.
And then you asked all of these people, me included, but you asked some of your comic heroes like Pat Short, John Kenny and Dave McSavage and all this to come into it. And they agreed. And suddenly it was done and made. And then that's kind of a dream come true. And then you start showing it to friends and the small little premiere and everything. So what's happened since then?
Yeah, so obviously the panic set in then because we're watching it. I was like, there's things that have to be changed here now and there's some things that have to be cut and some people have to be cut and it needs to be tighter and we need this song changed and all that kind of stuff. And I also didn't have the backing of a studio or a state body, if you like. And how do you release the film? It's a comedy about this obnoxious hurler. It's not Galway Film Flam material necessarily. And so what do I do? And all of a sudden I hooked up with a great publicist, Anna Lavery. She probably won't enjoy me mentioning her name, but she deserves it. I ended up just speaking to her, my co-star in the film, Elva Trill, who's wonderful. She had worked with Anna a little bit when she was in Jurassic World, that came out. And I just sat down with Anna. She said, look, I'll watch the film. She watched it. She liked it. I won't say loved it because it makes me sound probably a little bit, But she liked it and she saw a future for it. And she basically reached out to some people and the next thing I knew, it was September of 2023 and we were having a we went from the screening in Garter Lane to a premiere at the Odeon in Point Village with the red carpet and all the press there and everyone. And October 6th of 2024, it came out nationwide in the cinemas.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Of 2023.
2023, October 6th of last year, it got a nationwide release in the cinemas.
Nationwide release. Yeah. And that's something you didn't think was going to happen, is it?
No, I thought maybe the Odeon in Waterford might show it.
Yeah.
For a week or something like that. And they did, but they kept it for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And it came out, I think, in 4 different cinema chains. Yeah. Pretty much every county in Ireland.
Did you go to see it?
I did. I went to see it with my family on the first night and the only time I was probably ever sicker in my life was when I had COVID. I just couldn't handle it. The same as the premiere in the Odeon in the Point. That night, the press. And
sickening.
I actually had my doctor on the phone with me. Dr. Mark Rowe in Waterford was on the phone with me and he was like, Tony, let's just take a breath. Let's just take a breath. And I was like, the breath isn't working, Mark. The breath is not working. So he said...
Like you were having almost a panic attack?
I was having a panic attack, yeah.
Okay.
So my fiancée, Shun, was outside of the bathroom. She was like, who are you talking to in there? I'm like, my doctor, let me have a moment. So Mark Rode told me that he had a meditation on his website. And I went into the shower, turned on the shower and just put my phone up against my ear and just went, okay, listen to the man's words. And somehow got through the night.
Oh my God.
But on October 6th, I went to see it with my family, my whole extended family. We all went into the cinema to see it. And it was crazy. It was hard to sit through.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. And then one other night, I went to a different cinema to see it with my mates.
Yeah.
We went in kind of at
Was that all right?
That was easier.
Yeah.
That was easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was surreal. It was very buying a ticket to my own film.
Yeah.
Like, listen, I've been in stuff before. Obviously, I've done small parts, but to actually see my face on the poster and the hurler written on the ticket that I came up with at a session in 2011, mental.
Yeah. And what else has happened since?
Oh, well, it's now out on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, well, this is extraordinary.
Yeah, it's now out on it came out first on Apple TV to buy and rent.
Yeah.
Which was wonderful. But I always found that to stream is too better. Because if you're already paying for your subscription for your stream, all you have to do is click one button and it's on. So I knew that Prime had the rights to it, and it was supposed to come out on the same day everywhere. But as these things usually happen, it all got a bit staggered.
Yeah.
So last Friday, as we record this, it came out to stream in the UK and Ireland first on Amazon Prime, and then it will come out worldwide on Amazon Prime after that.
That's gas.
Which is mental, isn't it?
Oh, really, really brilliant. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. That's wonderful news.
Yeah.
It's wonderful news. What can that, what could happen? Or, you've obviously, let me see, I'm trying to imagine. You've obviously maybe developed some contacts now in Amazon Prime and stuff like that. And they might be going, do you have anything else then?
So much more.
Good.
So much more. I have loads more. Like, listen, I made this film because I wanted to do a TV series of The Hurler. And I didn't realise how difficult it was to get a TV series over the line. And that was quite difficult.
You tried RTE and everything, didn't you? Or
Yeah. We had some conversations in the
Your face has just gone puce.
Well, I'm going like, well, hang on now. I'm in a bit of PR mode here now. It was different when we were talking before. No, I did. Look, I spoke to RTE in 2016 and that all kind of went whatever way it went. The gentleman who was head of comedy at the time is no longer head of comedy there. He's elsewhere. But I still think it should. I still think it could be a TV series.
Oh, right. So you could even reimagine it as a TV series.
I do think so. Myself and Carl Spain have written a pilot and a kind of an outline for it, and I would love to do that. Still would love to do that. I obviously. Like, I would love more people to see it. Listen, and that's me being greedy. It's been amazing. It was, again, 6 weeks in the cinema nationwide. Now out on Amazon Prime, Apple TV and everything.
Sidney Bernstein here. I'm over in...
Yeah, exactly.
Let me talk to Tony Kelly.
Exactly. So I want like so many people to see the film now as well. But
principally Sidney Bernstein.
Yeah, or some, some avatar of
Sidney Bernstein.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's what you want.
Yeah, it is, but I'd love to do another movie, obviously. I'd love to make another movie, but I think...
But also TV series, as you say, is the new movie. TVs are the new movies now.
Yeah, and look, as I say, it originally was a web series that I made with one camera, one lav mic in Tommy Mars in Waterford. Yeah. And it's now been in the cinema nationwide. So I think, I really do think, they say it like, it's like a Disney thing, but anything is possible. But I think kind of
So are you getting any vibe in Waterford? Who do you think you are by, eh?
I think that's like... The first time I ever did stand-up was in 2009 in New York, and I heard people in Waterford were saying that already. So that's just, I don't even let that, Yeah, I'm sure there's people.
Far from New York, you're rare by.
Yeah, this fella's down in Gotham Comedy Club, so I wouldn't even pay to see him down in Garter Lane. But
exactly, yeah. So that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
So what else has happened over the last year? I mean, for example, have you found that the success of getting the movie off the ground and... has uplifted your confidence?
Yeah.
Has it helped you to gain work and prospect of interesting work?
Absolutely. I'm very.
Tell me a bit about that.
I'm very, very lucky. It's been non-stop since then. But I think the way I've always been, and people who I'm friends with in the industry and have been for years, have always said to me, "You're going to do something, but I'm not going to be the one to take the chance to let you do it." That's kind of the way it's always been with me. But I think now that I've done it myself, if you like. Well, not obviously by myself, but like with, you know, I've pushed through this film with a brilliant, you know, support of people. Now it's been like, okay, well, let's talk and let's see what we can do now that you've proven yourself.
Yeah.
So that's been great. I've since we last talked, I've started working for Virgin Media One.
Yeah.
I do the voiceovers for their on-air promos.
Yeah, which is great because you've got a Waterford accent. And me from being Waterford as well, we love Waterford. So you are now bringing Waterford to the nation.
Yeah.
Now on Virgin Media, Coronation Street, boy.
Yeah, I think I do soften it probably a little bit, but the initial conversation was actually through my podcast that I used to do, My Head is Wrecked with Tony Kelly, which is a mental health podcast that I've been doing for years off and on. And one of the people at Virgin Media had heard the podcast, one of the episodes I did, and I do the ad reads on that obviously myself, and she was like, "Oh, he's got a nice voice," and she reached out to me and said, like, "We'd like to hear a Waterford accent on Virgin Media One. Would you be interested in maybe trying out this, you know, these promo reads with us?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And I remember the first one I did was for a show called The Fall of Bomber Kavanagh. And I had to...
I hear you already.
Yeah, Kavanagh, right?
Yeah.
So Siún,
Bomber.
Siún, my fiancée, she's from just outside Rosslare, but she went to some nice schools when she was younger and stuff and speaks very well. So I had to say, how do you say Kavanagh for the telly, basically? So I remember the first recorded day was like, The Fall of Bomber Kavanagh.
Yeah.
This week on Virgin Media One. And I remember the note I got back was, that's really great, but that's not how you say Kavanagh.
Yes.
So that was kind of a learning process. But anyway, look, that it ended up going very well, and thankfully that's a regular thing that I've been working there now for over a year. I've really enjoyed it, and I've learned to speak a little bit more properly, but also still with the Waterford thing.
And I mean, obviously you are a stand-up comic, and that's how you kind of started. You started as a stand-up comedian, and you went to New York, and you started doing the comedy clubs in New York and about, and you performed with some great dudes and for some great promoter dudes and all that over there who had big names over there. And are you still pursuing the stand-up comedy? Do you still want to stand up in front of 400 people, 500 people?
Yeah, absolutely. I've started running a comedy club in Waterford, Bank Lane Comedy Club. I've had some great shows over the last year, and I've been gigging around the country again myself. I was only speaking to Ed here before we started. I got a bit of a stage fright thing for years, and I didn't really know I had it.
You hadn't been on for a long time?
No, I hadn't been on for a long time, and I kept turning down, sorry, I can't do it. And it was fear.
Yeah.
There was something in me that just stopped me being able to go up and do it.
Yeah.
And I've started again since the film came out. And I'm doing All Together Now Festival this year in Waterford, and playing the comedy tent there. And
Great.
it's just been brilliant to be back out doing stuff.
Great. So comedy, live comedy, the working with Virgin Media, developing this stuff, developing future projects, possibly with Amazon Prime and stuff.
Well, hopefully with Amazon Prime, yeah. I mean,
but our TV.
Our TV, and I've been working on 2 other features scripts as well, which I'd love to see get over the line. And look, listen, the other thing is being a jobbing actor, you know, out auditioning constantly, a couple of auditions a week. And that's the part that's really difficult, because...
And when you do auditions, are you doing auditions in person, or do you do
self-tape?
Self-taping. Is that everybody self-taping?
Everyone.
And are you self-taping for America and England?
That's it, yeah.
So rather than go over, they just go, is the process, if we really like him, we'd ask him to come over after the self-tape?
That's pretty much it. Like the last job I did before COVID was an American production that was shooting in Budapest. It was for The Alienist, which is a Netflix show. So I auditioned for that. And I went, it's an American show shooting in Hungary, and they're auditioning Irish fellas for it. So I went, okay, and I ended up getting it, and they brought me over. It was great. But like,
and you did the show?
I did the show,
great.
yeah. But like, that was 2019. But like, it's yeah, you don't know. And one thing I had to realise was none of this is personal. And I only really realised it when I made my own film. Because I had some great people who maybe were like, oh, I'd love to do something in that. Is there anything for me? And there's not. And you have to say, I'm sorry, you're amazing, but I don't even have a part for you. And then sometimes, even in the cut, I was looking at some amazing performances, but they had to get cut because of the time. Nothing in the business is personal. Whereas I used to think if I do a self-tape and send it in, they don't give me the job, they hate me.
Yeah.
or I'm not good enough.
And when you're doing your self-tape, let's say it's set in the jungle, right?
Yeah.
Are you going, right, fucking, I'm going to make fucking jungle now, and my fucking living room there now. I'm going to go out and get a few leaves and a few trees and shag them in there now to the thing. Or do you just go, look, it's all about the performance, darling. I'll just do it against a wall.
Just drop in.
Yeah,
just drop in.
Oh, you drop stuff in?
No, I'm like that's an acting phrase of getting into character.
Oh, I thought so. Drop into character.
Drop into character.
Oh, sorry, I thought you put loads of this green screen stuff.
No,
beside
I hang a sheet off a door.
Yeah.
And make it white background and have a little ring light or something like that and just tape. It's all imagination stuff, but it's difficult.
You drop in. Is what it's called. In other words,
into your character.
In other words, basically, if you believe me in the character, you believe me in the character.
Exactly.
If you don't, you don't. I'm not going to put monkeys or jungles beside me to help you believe it. There's no point.
Yeah, I don't think they want to. I don't think they maybe. Yeah. I don't think they want to see that. But maybe I get more work if I did. I don't know. But it's difficult because I think if I'm in a room with someone, I can get a rapport and I can get a feel for what they want.
Yes.
Whereas if I'm self-taping, it's difficult because everything is guessing.
Yes.
And like you can do 4 takes and I think that's the best one, but it might not be.
Yes.
I find that process very, very difficult.
What's our friend's name, the guy that played the lead role in that great thing, Breaking Bad? What's his name again?
Bryan Cranston.
Bryan Cranston. He gave some really interesting advice on tape to actors about auditions. And he said, you're not going to get the part. Don't try to get the part.
I saw that.
Yeah. Just don't bother with the part. Forget the part. Your job is to go in and do the best read you can.
Yeah.
You are not getting this part.
Yeah.
Do not think you're getting the part. Do not think you have a right to the part. Do not think they like you for the part or that you might be good for it. Just do the job.
Yeah.
That's your job. After that, it's up for them to make a decision.
That's correct.
That's kind of what you said a minute ago.
It's the truth. I didn't see it that way for
so
long. No, and I think I said this on the last episode, like that I was on with you. I auditioned for Ted Lasso. And for Roy Kent.
Yeah.
And it was my dream role in my dream production. And I took that so personally when I didn't get that part. And that's ridiculous. That's not the real world.
Yeah.
You know, but now I try and do exactly what Cranston said. What Crano said.
Yeah.
And
the B.
Exactly, the big B. And I just kind of do the tape, send it off, and never think about it again.
Yeah.
Except for I did one about 2 weeks ago for something I really want to do.
I can't stop thinking about it.
Keep refreshing that email app.
It must be a good part, is it?
Well, it's a good production,
Could be, yeah.
¿Estás pensando en tus vacaciones soñadas este verano temiendo el costo? Con iBora recibes reembolsos en todas tus compras. Así puedes tomar más tiempo creando recuerdos este verano y menos tiempo soñando hacerlos. Ahora mismo, iBora ofrece a nuestros oyentes $5 solo por probar iBora usando el código La Música cuando te registras. Simplemente ve a App Store o Google Play Store y descarga la aplicación gratuita de iBora para empezar a ganar reembolsos. Usa el código La Música. Eso es IBOTTA en Google Play o App Store y usa el código La Música.
Listen, and so I was I followed you on Instagram and everything, and I better be still in this fucking movie.
You are the very first scene.
Thank you. So I followed you throughout the year then and tried to retweet or repost the publicity you had on it, and then lo and behold, some other publicity came your way. It was the Sunday Indo.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, the Sunday Indo. How's your mental health problems there, Tony?
Yeah.
Oh Jesus! And I was there. Oh God! Hopefully this goes okay, because I read the headline and I went, Jesus, Tony's walked straight into it.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a document about the fact that you had made this successful film, The Her, and that you were in the cinemas. But that years ago you had difficulties with addiction.
Yeah.
And we've all heard that before, you know, my drugs, hell and everything. But your one was slightly different.
Yeah.
So tell my audience about the genesis of your addiction problems.
Yeah, so I was asked to do the piece for the Indo through the rehab facility that I went to. And as I said before, we were talking
so cool.
before.
You've been to rehab and everything.
It's not brilliant. That cool, man. It's in County Wexford. You know what I mean? You're looking over at the Rosslea Golf Club in the middle of the night. But so they had asked me would I kind of share my story, and I was hesitant because I actually was on Matt Cooper's show in 2019 when my podcast first launched, because I shared my story there. But a year later, I was in rehab, after sharing that
Right.
story.
Well, Cooper would do that to anybody.
Well, I'm not saying that Matt had anything to do with it, but I'm not just saying he didn't help.
Put you into absolute hell.
So I was on. Anyway, that happened, and a year later during COVID, I just kind of had gone back out again. Like I'd been sober for almost 7 years,
Right.
clean and sober.
Right.
It had happened through periods. It's all in the piece, basically. So I said yes to doing the interview for the Indo. And I said, look, I'll do it, but if they just would at least plug that the film is available on Apple TV or whatever at the time, and they were like, yeah, okay. And I'm always hesitant to do it because it rakes up such old coals. It makes you feel all the stuff again, kind of residually. So, although I was having a good week that week and shared that story, and it came out, the day it came out, I was almost taken back to it again because it reawakens all the old emotions almost from that time. So, yeah, I did a thing with the Indo about it, and I just spoke about how prescription medication was my downfall basically in my early 20s. I'd been living in New York. Listen, I was drinking too much as well. I have a problem with drink as well. But Valium, Xanax, and when I was in America, the American prescription medications were off the charts.
Yeah.
So that was it as well. But yeah, during COVID...
Did you say it was your mother who had first given you
Valium? Yeah, my mother gave me a Valium to get me through a traumatic thing that had happened. And I went, oh, this feels amazing. And went
Sorry, you'd have to tell me the feeling. Because I think I may have taken a Valium, but I can't remember it.
Okay. For me...
Not because of the Valium, but because I just can't remember it.
Do you know when you're having a nice few pints and you just feel that little bit of warmth? You're not drunk, but you know you're having alcohol taken. It's a little... Well, this is the way I always feel about it. You feel a little warmth. It's like a little pilot light goes off in the stomach and the skin starts to tingle a little bit.
Right.
That's kind of it, but multiplied by a million probably when you're...
So it's comforting.
Very.
And warm.
Very.
And a little blanket.
Yeah, but what I was using it for then was to just block out bad stuff that was going on in my head, basically.
Which
Bad
sounds
memories.
like anxiety.
Yeah, pretty much. Because I was prescribed Xanax for my anxiety, but I was prescribed as Xanax when I was feeling anxious. I wasn't prescribed 25 Xanax on a Monday morning.
Sorry for laughing.
Do you know what I mean, though?
No, it's just the way people go from nothing to just,
Yeah.
That's the
Well, this is what happened. I'd been sober and clean for 7 years almost. And then in September of 2020...
Oh, God.
In September of 2020, I just started taking 30 or 40 Valium a day again.
Jesus
just like that.
Christ. Does that have any side effects? Apart from the blankety feeling?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, like, I can't remember long periods of my life.
Would you be out of it on
Out
25
of it.
Valium?
The problem is that you're out of it, but you think you're not.
But you're walking around?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And think that you're cognitive.
Are you kind of blind? Is it the parallel to being blind drunk? Where people are blind drunk and say, did you see, I was talking to you about this on Tuesday.
Yeah,
Tony,
and I don't remember.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember a lot of 2010. Like, that year doesn't really exist to me, which is great because Roy Hodgson was the Liverpool manager at the time, so I get to forget all that.
And the economy was shite anyway.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know anything
It's
about
bollocks.
it.
You miss nothing.
Yeah. So there's long periods in my life that I don't remember. And
I
then
can see why you were trying to do that in 2020 again. Yeah.
So that worked for a few days, and then what happens then for me anyway is that the drugs and the alcohol mixed together, the prescription drugs now and alcohol mixed together, just create a downward trajectory. The brain chemicals and stuff just get very sad, and it just becomes very dark. And like for someone who hadn't used or drank for 7 years,
Which was a great performance.
Yeah. I just wish I'd done the work then that I ended up doing afterwards. Like I went into Asherie in Wexford, and like, look, listen.
How were you during those 7 years?
Terrible.
You weren't even, so you were off.
Not a moment's happiness.
Really?
7 years, I don't think.
Why do you think?
Oh God, I could
That's
get
life.
No, I don't think so. There's a thing, and I don't want to get too feckin' preachy either.
Yeah.
But there's a thing in recovery they talk about. It's called the spiritual malady, where if you're an addict, an alcoholic, whatever, you are wired and it's ingrained in you to find unhappiness and just not be happy. That malcontent of addiction. And
In other words, it's the corollary of being high.
yes,
It's basically saying you were born to be high. Anything else is low.
pretty much.
Right.
You're wired for destruction, basically.
my God.
That's what they say. And
Interesting.
for me and my story and my journey, I have to believe it because I lived it. And I've also lived now on the other side. So when I went into Asherie, It was the craziest thing because for 7 years I couldn't understand what people were talking about. Oh, being sober is amazing. Being clean and sober is amazing. I have so much happiness in my life, and I was miserable. And I couldn't even have a bottle with one of the lads to celebrate, or to drown me, because I was supposed to be sober. And I couldn't understand where this happiness they were all getting was coming from. But it was because there's the 12 steps. Look, I won't get too into that, but that's what you're supposed to do. And I never did one, but I expected to be well. And that's not how it works. You have to clean house. You have to get rid of the wreckage of the past. All the stuff that's led you to where you are, you have to get that out of your system.
A friend of mine told me about, he was doing the 12 steps, and he was telling me about one of the 12 steps is literally knocking on people's door and revisiting people and saying, listen, I just wanted to look you in the eye, make amends, and tell you I'm sorry for what I did. And he said, not everybody accepts your apology.
No, they don't. Some people are just happy that you're living your life.
Yeah.
And they don't need an apology. They don't want, it's like, that was so long ago.
Yeah.
But anyone, the other thing about it is, and people hear that and they go, oh, I could never do that. I spent 7 years avoiding doing that.
Yeah.
And I could have just done it. Whereas when I did it, I learned that, like, people say, oh, you have to make amends. It says made amends to people unless whether to do so would injure them or others. So if you're going to bring drama or conflict to someone's life by apologising, you don't do it. You can indirectly do it. Like, I know of a man...
Through a conduit, maybe.
Or do something that they'll feel the benefits of but will never know you did it.
Okay.
I've done a few of those.
Have you?
Yeah.
So kind of a silent pay it forward.
Yeah. Or maybe I've done something that will knock on to that person that they'll again reap the benefits of, but they won't necessarily know it was me. I know of a man. There's a story that went around of a guy from near Waterford who robbed a car when he was in his active addiction and crashed it on an elderly lady, and he went to apologise and she wouldn't take his apology. So every Christmas he chops down wood, chops it up in a trailer and sends it over to our house every Christmas, and she doesn't know it's from him. So there's stuff like that nice. That you can do.
Tony, did you know from a younger age did you figure out that you were a person with an addictive personality?
I was 24 when I realised.
It hit you kind of.
Yeah, I was in New York. I was after doing film school, and it was a lot of, anytime I was drinking, it was being a problem was coming up, but I also was using prescription drugs every single day.
So the stuff you were using as well it wasn't just Valium, it was Xanax, but it was also was it OxyContin? OxyContin, and that's famous, of course, OxyContin, because it's famous for relieving pain. Yeah, and there's a series, isn't there, with Michael Keaton? There is. Dope Sick, am I right in saying that? Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I didn't watch it, but I've seen several. That particular period, I was doing Vicodin, Percocet, Xanax, Valium, Soma, which is a muscle relaxer. I was doing about 6 or so at the time. That was like the headline they led with in that Indo piece. I overdosed twice in 24 hours on prescription medication. That's the truth. But Jesus Christ, they didn't need to make it the headline. Like, that's hard to put up on your Facebook and go like, oh, I did an interview with the Indo, and they're like, oh. Just a kind of a side question here. Through your experience with this, like, not that many people go kind of through that little road you went, where I was on 25 Xanax in the morning. Like, not many people go through that. Would that ever inform you creatively in the future, do you think? Yeah. Or have you thought about that angle? I have. Even from, God forbid, a semi-comic point of view? Yeah, I actually was talking to Carl Spain about this a while ago, and he actually was like, you should do a show. And when I was in rehab, there was a counsellor in there who was really a character. He was a fully formed character. A lot of the counsellors in there are recovering addicts themselves, right. Which is brilliant, by the way. Like, that's the only way to really do it, I think. But I remember he was really strict. Like, obviously he has to be strict with himself, and it was something like, if you left the cup of the teaspoon out of the sink, if you didn't wash it up after yourself, he'd be coming in and going, "Who's the teaspoon belong to, lads?"
Huh? Sure, Daisy, you may as well go out and buy a bag next. That's the end of it. Huh? That's where it starts.
You've lost yourself.
That's where it starts, lad. Huh?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
The spoon out of the sink.
And I used to do little impressions of the counsellors in there, and just kind of make it. And I was like, maybe there might be something in this. So, but Carl said that you should do you should do a stand-up special about your time in rehab and all that. Maybe.
Yes, maybe. I mean, because I don't know. I mean, commercially, right? Mm-hmm. The world is more. The world is much more prepared to listen to stuff like that. I don't know if you know a comedian called Ty Hickey.
I know Ty. Yeah,
And Ty's been on this podcast a number of times. And in actual fact, one of the first times Ty, came out about this was on my radio show.
Right.
Where he came out with his story about that he was a chronic alcoholic. Mm-hmm. But he wanted to demystify alcoholism because he went, I had the best fucking crack ever.
I heard him say that.
Until it ruined my life.
Yeah.
But the point was that I think the popular conception of being an alcoholic was wrong, he said, because actually a lot of alcoholics have an awful lot of crack while it's happening.
Right.
It's just that they're laying waste to the world around them.
Okay.
But from their perspective, quite a while, it's having a ball.
Okay.
So it's not all, puking upside down in your own face and, policemen just throwing you into paddy wagons.
Yeah.
There are adventures and there are things. Now, all of which end ultimately in a disastrous course.
Of course.
But he kind of broke the mould a little bit in that way.
Yeah.
And then he did his show about it.
That's right.
So he has a play and I went to see his play and his book.
Yeah.
And his play is brilliant and he has a fantastic voice and singing voice and everything.
I think there's something in it, particularly with the prescription thing, I think, because it's not really talked about enough.
And it's huge.
Yeah, they tried to make me go to rehab and I said, sure, at this stage is probably about time.
Well done, Tony Winehouse.
Yeah.
So because... And particularly in America as well,
It's crazy.
It is nuts, yeah.
I remember when I got there, right, I was there to go to film school and I met somebody and the first thing they said to me was, do you do drugs? And I said, no, because I didn't. I said, I love a bottle, and all that kind of stuff. But saying that, I've been taking these Valium and Xanax and I'm taking a few more than I should be. And that person said to me, oh, Valium and Xanax, you should see what we have here. And introduced me to what they had over there. And I went, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But no, I think there's,
this thing like fentanyl.
But that's scary now. That is terrifying.
And the standing up people in Philadelphia. The people who...
I do, yeah.
The people who are standing, The Walking Dead in Philadelphia.
I actually spoke yesterday to someone about a project about this, so maybe there might be something will happen with that. But I do, I've been doing the podcast for a while and I think it needs to kind of evolve from there because listen, it's a big issue, but gambling is a huge issue as well.
Yes,
I've been just blessed. I'm going to bless myself. I'm not a gambler. I never have been. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But I have very, very close friends who are destroyed over it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something.
We've talked about it a lot on this podcast.
Yeah. So I think there's maybe something there that can be explored with, maybe true. I think it has to be always handled with gentle kind of. But it can also be done, I think, with a little bit of humour thrown in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeepers. So exciting times. Now, you said the 7 years you went through, which didn't feel great.
Yeah.
How are these years
amazing
happening? Yeah. So now you've come out the other side, but now you're experiencing, let's say, to put a cliche on it, the joys of being sober. I'm enjoying every moment. I think, again, to use another, because we're dropping names everywhere now. My good friend Bradley Cooper, talked about the joy he feels on a daily basis being sober.
He's brilliant. He does. I know some people over that side of the pond, and I know the work he does in recovery and stuff like that, and it's absolutely brilliant. I was told sobriety is to be enjoyed, not endured, and I endured it for 7 years.
Yes,
and I was fully anxious, constantly thought maybe I wasn't good enough, that people around me didn't think I was good enough. What are people around me think? And constantly in that mindset, oh, I'm doing this, but that'll never happen. Constant negativity. Whereas now, I just had dinner with a friend I haven't seen for years, and I was saying now I just live today. Today is what today is, But I think it's been almost 4 years for me now, and it's just like that, just an amazing 4 years. It was very difficult when I came out. I was very tender for most of 2021, but since then, the stuff that, making the movie, I'm engaged, I'm getting married next year.
Yeah, I saw you got engaged recently. Yeah,
we got engaged back in November in New York.
Congratulations,
which was amazing. Thank
back
you.
in New York.
Back in New York. Yeah. It just what happened was I decided. like, I'm going to marry this girl. And then we had kind of conversations about, you know, what would you want to do if you got married and all that. And she was like, oh, I don't know if I ever really believe, like, it's nice to meet someone and all that. And I went, all right. So when I asked her dad, you know, would it be okay if I asked her to marry me? He was like, yeah, I'd be okay with that. And I said, lovely, okay, because I'm a bit traditional like that. And so I asked her dad, Aidan, would he be okay with it? And he said, yeah. And her mum kind of said yes as well. So we went over to New York. And in typical of my life is like a sitcom, Mario. Nothing is ever just straightforward.
Right.
I got chosen for a random test going through security, so my bag had to be open and the ring is in the bag. And I'm a very nervous flyer, so Siún is with me.
Yeah.
She's like, I'll go with you to make sure. I'm like, yeah, thank you. And I go, we're going to give you an extra search. And I'm going, there's a ring in the bag. There's a ring in the bag. Like that. And he's like, sir, there's no need to get aggressive. I'm like, I'm not getting aggressive. Listen to me. So luckily there was...
oh, yeah.
The ring is in the bag and she's there.
Christ.
So that was going on. So anyway, look, I panicked because they told me that I was going through an extra security and I thought it was a US immigration thing. Now, I've always had legal visas, always done things the right way. But also you kind of go, oh, do they think I wasn't? So I thought I was going to get pulled into US immigration to do a big spiel, even though like all my paperwork has always been in order. And so I go, well, shoot, I'm going straight through. And she goes, Tony, we're 3.5 hours early for the flight. And I'm like, I don't care, we're going in. So it was only one extra x-ray. And then we were sitting there for 3.5 hours in Terminal 2, just sitting there like that.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, I'm going to kill you. And I'm like, I'm going to ask you to marry me later. So we ended up getting there anyway. And she was like, will we just have a rest for the evening? Like, I know it's New York. I was like, no, we have to go out. And I remember her saying to me afterwards, like, you're acting so weird.
Yeah.
I was like, that's why. So we went to a place called Dumbo in Brooklyn.
Right.
It's right in between the Manhattan Bridge and the Brooklyn Bridge. It's beautiful.
What is it?
It's actually an acronym for Down Under the Manhattan Bridge Overpass.
Okay.
It's the cover of Once Upon a Time in America. You know that old movie? It's right there. So I went down to there's a little kind of not a beach, but a pebbly kind of beach-ish thing. Went down on one knee there and asked her, and it was lovely and very, very nice moment. And right afterwards then, you know, we were in the little post-engagement fog. And I went, now listen, I know you don't want to actually get married, but... And she went, oh no, I do. Oh, I do want to get married. So I went, oh, well, I guess we have to plan a wedding now then. I thought we were going to be engaged for life.
Yeah.
But no, it was really, really nice. And it all just, bar the little thing in the airport, everything just worked out. And it was brilliant because like I have so many close friends in New York. It's my second home. Yeah. So I was able to we were able to celebrate that moment with all my friends who we wouldn't usually see. You know?
Nice.
So it was very, very nice.
That's brilliant. And a return to triumph in New York.
Well, that's it. And the thing about it is as well, and we're talking about post-sobriety, like when that was happening, The Hurler was out in the cinemas over here. So like there was so much good stuff going on here in Ireland at the same time as that went on over there. So to think about the difference in the few years, it's crazy.
Tony, I'm absolutely delighted for you, and it's great to see you again. And you're so much. There's a positivity, not a positivity. There's an assertiveness.
Am I glowing?
No, not so much. There's an assertiveness about you which you didn't have before, which I really like.
Thank you.
I think it's good. Your confidence has come on,
Thank you.
And that's wonderful. And I think your story kind of showed me something at the beginning, and it continues to show me. You had a plan, you had an idea, you cared about it, you tried. You asked a lot of people, and a lot of people said yes.
Yeah. They did, and
that shows you something.
Yeah, they believed in it, and they believed in me, which meant more.
They also believed in it's a human thing. They went, the guy has already made gargantuan effort.
Like when you came on board, the movie was finished, except for the beginning.
Yeah,
and I was able to show you. Some of the stuff already. Yeah. So that was great. But like there was other people like John Kenny has become such a close friend to me. I'd never met him. He was one of my idols growing up. And I just sent him the script. Yeah. And he just said, okay. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So it was just, honestly, it's been the best experience of my life.
Yes.
And I just...
Really? You think it's been a really brilliantly huge experience, yeah?
It's taught me so much about life and about the world and the way the world works. And a lesson in so much as that if you don't ever give up, like I could have given up so many times and none of this would have happened. And listen, if nothing ever happens again, that would be terrible. But, you know, I'll always be able to go, well.
And it also shows you that the next challenge you go through professionally, you're going to have a lot of experience in the bench polls of that journey. So you're going to go. Let's say you're on doing a series with somebody in America or whatever, and they don't like you or whatever, or something, but they're thinking about you and they don't like you. You're going to be able to take that patience part much easier because you've been through it all already.
Yeah, exactly.
Much worse.
Yeah.
So you've learned loads of lessons by creating.
Exactly. And I have this calling card now where, whereas before, as I said, there were so many people going, you got something, there's something with you, but I'm not going to be the one to take the chance. Now, there's no chance. It's there. There's a proven thing. As I said, listen, Mario, if you had said to me that the 2 cinemas in Waterford and the one in Dungarvan were going to show The Hurler when I started making this, I would have went unbelievable. But to come out on, nationwide, in 4 different cinema chains, to spend 6 weeks in cinemas and to now be across the world on Amazon Prime, that's not even real. That's unbelievable.
Fucking unreal, boy.
Unreal, boy.
Listen, congratulations,
Thank
Tony.
you, Mario.
The Hurler is out on Amazon Prime, and anybody who can, jump into it and go and see it. And before you know it, it'll probably be a TV series as well if Tony has his way. Fingers crossed, says he. Well done.
Thank you, Mario.
And my thanks to Tony Kelly, and I'm delighted for my fellow Dacia Man's great success and more may he have in the future. If you'd like to contact me, it's mariorosenstock@gmail.com. You know the drill. I read them all and get back to most of them. Please tell one other person about this podcast if you like it. See you same time, same place next week.
¿Estás pensando en tus vacaciones soñadas este verano temiendo el costo? Con Ibora recibes reembolsos en todas tus compras. Así puedes tomar más tiempo creando recuerdos este verano y menos tiempo soñando hacerlos. Ahora mismo, Ibora ofrece a nuestros oyentes $5 solo por probar Ibora usando el código La Música cuando te registras. Simplemente ve a App Store o Google Play Store y descarga la aplicación gratuita de Ibora para empezar a ganar reembolsos. Usa el código La Música. Eso es IBOTTA en Google Play o App Store y usa el código La Música.